Hi guys, Diane here again for Life on the Farm. Today I'm going to talk about making pasties. My family's made pasties for as long as I can remember. We don't really have a formal recipe that we use. It's just been kind of passed on. You watch somebody in the family make them and then you start making them and then you pass it on. So we don't really have a formal recipe that's been written down. But anyway, a lot of people up here really like pasties and they've asked me how I make them and how I do the recipe. So I thought I would try to make a video and share that. My family makes English pasties. There's a lot of different versions. Everybody thinks they have the best recipe. This is just how my family makes it. Again, it's an English pasty. It doesn't have rutabaga or anything like that. A lot of people have just different things that they put inside. English pasties are meat, potatoes, onions, period. That's it. My husband does not eat onions.
What the?
We've tried talking to him. So I do put other vegetables in his pasty because, again, he won't eat the onions. So I'll show you that when I get to that part. A little history on pasties. They came to the United States from England. Men who worked in the mines, they brought them for their meal. Many times their wives would make it in the morning and they would wrap them in a towel or a piece of cloth, and they would wrap them up while they're hot, and they stayed hot for a long time, which was another benefit to it. It was very common for them to put their initials carve it in the crust. So if there was any confusion, they would know whose pasty was whose. My family has done that also for years. We've always had put our initials in the pasty, and so that's how you knew it was yours. I don't know if that was by accident or if that was just they carried on the tradition, but we've always done the same thing. So let me get my ingredients together and we'll meet in the kitchen and get started. Here I am in the kitchen. I'm going to get started making the crust for the pasties and also cutting up the meat and potatoes and onions, and then I'll show you how to put it all together. Okay, I have all my ingredients ready. I have my pie crusts all rolled out. They're still in the wax paper, and I'll show you the reason for that when we get started. I do make my own pie crust. I'm a little bit of a pie crust snob. You can use store-bought, pre-rolled pie crust. They just don't have the same taste to me. I just don't care for them, but you absolutely can use those. Again, I do make my own pie crust. You can use whatever recipe you want, or you can use the pre-made. I have steak. I've used sirloin steak this time. Other people have used round steak, or I've even seen pot roast. You can use really whatever you want. We use steak. The better the steak, the better the pasty is what we always say. There's about a cup for each pasty. So I'm trying to give you a frame of reference. I know I told you there was no recipe written out, so I'm trying to give you some measurements here, but it's about a cup. I measured it for each pasty. Some cut up potatoes. I used Yukon Gold. They really taste good in a pasty. They have a nice flavor. I just have them sitting in water so they don't turn brown. And just cubed, pretty small. You want them cut up like that. Here's corn. As I mentioned before, my husband doesn't eat onions. Here's my half of cup of onions for my pasty. So I put another kind of vegetable in for his pasties. You can use peas and carrots. You can use really whatever you want. I picked corn this time. You're going to use about a half a cup of vegetable for each pasty. I have a couple pats of butter here that goes on the top. I'll show you how that goes when we put the pasty together. And then salt and pepper to taste. I'm ready to put the pasty together now. I said before I kept it in the wax paper that I roll it out in. Yeah, I'm going to take the top one off. You don't need that on there anymore. So I'm going to put that aside. I do keep this paper on the bottom, and you'll see when I flip it over, it does come in handy to have this on the bottom here. When you put your pasties together, you always want to start with your potatoes on the bottom. I'm going to take a little bit of the potato. You want to take them out of the water and make sure that you get all the liquid off. Again, it's not an exact science. If you have a half a cup, if you have a quarter cup, depending on how much you want, how big you want the pasty to be, you're just going to eyeball it however much you want to use. So I'm going to put a little more potato in there. You want the potatoes always on the bottom because everything else is going to soak into that. You're going to put your you're going to put a little bit of salt and pepper in between your layers. You're going to take your meat, and I'm just going to put it all on the top. You're going to want to keep it in the center. I have a few inches on each side. You're going to want that because when you flip it over and assemble your pasty, you want to have something to grab onto so it stays together. Again, I'm going to put a little more salt and pepper on. And then I'm making mine, obviously no corn. We're going to do the onions. And I like a lot of them. So onions on top. Again, when you have the potatoes on the bottom, the juice from the onions and the steak goes through and it flavors your potatoes. So one more little bit of salt and pepper. Now, if I was making with another vegetable, you could either take a scoop and put that in now. You can put that on top of the potatoes. Really, you can do that however you choose to do it. It doesn't really matter if you're adding another vegetable. And last are my pats of butter. I usually put 3 just right on top. And then that helps soak down into your meat and potatoes also. I'm going to turn this a little bit. And hopefully you can see. Now I'm going to take, this is where your paper comes in handy. I'm going to take this and I'm going to kind of hold my ingredients inside, and then I'm going to flip the whole thing over. And again, your paper really comes in handy when you're doing this part of it. Now I'm going to peel back my paper. I'm going to take this side of the paper now and pull it up. You'll see I have a little bit of a gap there of where my crust is, and there's nothing else, there's no ingredients on there. I'm going to flip that up and press down. Now to make your sides, you're going to make everything tucked in there, and you're just going to crimp them. There's no real technical way to tell you how to do this. You're just going to crimp it all together. You're going to turn it, and you're going to do the same thing to this. You can take your paper. Again, that comes in handy. You're going to push it and just fold it and kind of just mash it down. You want to make sure that everything is nice and tight and secure. If you can see that. Knocking ingredients over. Again, everything is nice and tight and secure. You have a little bundle here. This is where we do the initials that I talked about. This is mine. So we're going to put a D for Diane. Show you what that looks like. Hopefully you can see that. And I do have a baking sheet lightly sprayed with cooking spray. And I'm going to take my paper and flip it into my hand. And then I'm going to flip it onto the baking sheet. And then I'll assemble my husband's, and his will go right here. Okay, I have my second pasty assembled and on the lightly greased baking sheet. I'm going to get that in the oven. I put it in the oven at 350 for about an hour and 10 minutes. After an hour, I take a steak knife and I try to put it in where I've made the initials so I don't ruin the look of the pasty, and I kind of insert it in there, and you can get a feel if your meat and potatoes are done. All right, our pasties are out of the oven. Let's check and see how we did. They're nice and golden brown. I did check inside. You can tell that the meat is done and the potatoes are done. So that's how my family makes English pasties. I hope you decide to try the recipe and it comes out well for you. That's it. Hit like and don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you again next time on Life on the Farm.